Did you ever wonder who really pulled the strings in the medieval era? Beyond the kings, the knights, and the grand bishops, what if there was another power quietly shaping the world from behind cloistered walls? What if ancient convents, those seemingly serene havens of prayer and piety, were actually the secret masterminds behind some of Europe's most profitable and influential industries? Get ready to have your understanding of history completely reshaped, because we are diving deep into the hidden economic empires of medieval convents. Number 1. Luxury, textiles, and secret dye guilds. The clatter of looms and the rhythmic thud of fulling hammers were common sounds in medieval Europe. But imagine a place where these sounds held a deeper, more mysterious rhythm. A place where colors shimmered with an intensity rarely seen anywhere else. For centuries, the popular narrative has focused on the great mercantile guilds of Florence or Bruges, the wool merchants of England, or the silk traders of Venice as the drivers of the luxury textile market. However, a growing body of evidence, much of it unearthed from obscure convent archives and private family collections, suggests that a significant, if not dominant, force in the production of the most coveted, brilliantly dyed fabrics was actually a network of highly specialized convents operating under a veil of secrecy. Consider the Sisters of the Crimson Thread, an order whose main house was nestled deep within the rolling hills of Tuscany, near the thriving city-state of Florence. Officially, their charter, dating back to the late 12th century, spoke only of pious contemplation, charitable works, and the weaving of simple vestments for their own use and for local churches. Yet, according to a recently deciphered ledger, known colloquially among historians as the Vermilion Account Book, discovered in a private collection in Siena in 2007, the Sisters of the Crimson Thread were producing quantities of dyed fabric that far exceeded any internal needs. This ledger, meticulously detailed with coded entries and cryptic symbols, outlines transactions for vast bales of silk and the finest English wool, all processed with an almost mythical crimson of St. Lucia dye. The crimson of St. Lucia was not merely a color. It was a phenomenon. Contemporary accounts, from royal decrees to personal letters, describe it as a shade of red, so deep, so vibrant, and so remarkably color-fast that it defied the usual fading and dulling that plagued other dyes of the era. Dr. Philippa Hayes, in her groundbreaking 2015 work, The Hidden Loom, Convents and the Mizabile Luxury Trade, details how the recipe for this crimson was a closely guarded secret, passed down verbally from abbess to abbess, often through a series of riddles and mnemonic devices. The process was said to involve incredibly specific quantities of the kermes insect, sourced from remote regions of Armenia and Persia, combined with a precise sequence of mordants, including alum purified in a unique method, and possibly even the inclusion of certain mineral powders known only to the convent's inner circle. The dyeing vats themselves were supposedly housed in a secluded part of the convent complex, hidden behind a false wall, accessible only through a subterranean passage. Local legend, often dismissed as folklore, speaks of steam rising from the earth and a faint, sweet metallic scent emanating from the convent grounds on certain nights, not from cooking or brewing, but from these clandestine dyeing operations. Furthermore, the Sisters of the Crimson Thread did not limit themselves to merely dyeing raw fabric. They were also masters of embroidery and the creation of intricate brocades. Their patterns were often complex, incorporating symbols and motifs that blended traditional Christian iconography with subtle, almost imperceptible geometric designs. These were not just beautiful. They were said to possess a unique luminescence, a quality that made them appear to shift and glow under different light conditions. A surviving fragment of a supposedly lost tapestry, believed to have been commissioned by a Duke of Burgundy in the early 14th century, shanks this luminous effect. Examinations by textile experts have revealed the use of extremely fine metallic threads, woven with a technique that created a nearly invisible scaffolding, allowing the silk to reflect light in an unusual way. This technique, labeled opus lucens, or shining work, in a fragment medieval text, was never widely reciprocated by secular guilds, suggesting its origin within a controlled, secluded environment. Distribution of these luxury textiles was equally discreet. Instead of openly selling in busy markets, the convents are believed to have used a complex network of lay sisters and trusted, wealthy merchant families who acted as intermediaries. These women, often noble widows or daughters sent to the convent for education, would travel to various courts and trade fairs, subtly painting small samples or wearing pieces themselves, generating demand among the elite. Their connection to the convent was rarely overt. Orders were placed through coded messages, often disguised as requests for spiritual guidance or charitable donations. The high price commanded by these exclusive textiles meant that even a relatively small volume of sales could generate immense hidden wealth for the convents, allowing them to expand their influence and acquire more resources. Compendium of Patronage, an incomplete manuscript, discovered in the Vatican archives, lists numerous powerful European noble families and even members of the various royal houses who were repeat customers for these, specially blessed for diplomatic gifts or important ceremonial attire, knowing their unmatched quality would convey immense prestige. Consider also the Convent of the Golden Fleece in Flanders, renowned in whisper networks for its mastery of fine wool and silk blending. While public records show them as a small contemplative community, a series of recently digitized inventories from the city of Bruges, dating to the late 13th century, reveal an inexplicable influx of raw silk from the Far East and incredibly fine merino wool from Spain being funneled through a specific minor merchant house. Directly linked to a secular panero, Dr. Hayes postulates that the Sisters of the Golden Fleece possess secret techniques for processing and spinning these fibers, creating blends so soft and resilient that they felt like spun clouds, far surpassing the common Flemish woolens. Their particular innovation might have been a unique method of fulling that made the fabric incredibly dense, yet remarkably light, or a specific way of carding that prevented pilling and increased durability. The secret dye guilds aspect was not just about holding exclusive recipes, but also about controlling the supply chain of rare dyestuffs. Convents, through their extensive networks of patrons and religious connections, often had access to trade routes and sources that were difficult for secular merchants to penetrate. For instance, the demand for indigo, derived from plants like Indigofera tinctoria, or for specific shades of purple from murex snails, was immense and highly lucrative. A footnote in a forgotten travelogue by a 14th century Dominican friar describes encountering sisters from an unknown convent in a remote trading post in Egypt, negotiating directly for large quantities of dried woad and madder root. This suggests an active involvement in sourcing, bypassing conventional market channels, and securing exclusive access to essential raw material. By controlling both the finest raw materials and the secret processing techniques, these convents effectively created a hidden monopoly on the absolute pinnacle of luxury, textiles influencing fashion, status, and the flow of wealth, without ever needing to overtly declare their economic power. The vibrant colors and exquisite textures that adorned the wealthiest and most powerful figures of medieval Europe might very well have been a silent testament to the hidden industrial might of its cloistered sisters. Number 2. Advanced brewing and distillation of elixirs. The monasteries of medieval Europe were well known for their brewing and winemaking. Benedictine monks, Cistercian brothers, their names are often associated with the production of fine ales and robust wines. But what about the convents? While often depicted as places of quiet prayer and simple domesticity, a fascinating and increasingly compelling argument suggests that certain convents specialized in the production of highly potent and uniquely formated. These weren't just standard beers or wines. These were specialized concoctions, carefully distilled and infused, shrouded in secrecy, and sold to an exclusive clientele. Consider the convent of Our Lady of the Vines, tucked away in a verdant valley in Gascony, France. While its official history speaks of a small community dedicated to prayer and charity, tantalizing fragments of evidence hint at a much grander, more audacious operation. Local folklore passed down through generations often speaks of the Elixir of St. Catherine, a potent spirit reputedly produced by the convent. While dismissed for centuries as mere legend, the recently discovered series of coded letters, dating from the late 13th century and exchanged between a Gascon nobleman and the abbess of Our Lady of the Vines, discusses shipments of the Blessed Draught and requests for additional measures for courage and insight. These letters, now part of the private collection of the Château de Montaigne, were analyzed by Professor Eleanor Blackwood for her 2018 work, Potent Potions of the Cloister. Blackwood suggests that the Elixir of St. Catherine was not a simple wine or ale, but a distilled spirit, a kind of early brandy or even a primitive liqueur infused with a complex blend of botanicals. The secret of this elixir lay not only in its distillation, a process that was still relatively new and complex in medieval Europe, but in its unique blend of herbs. While basic herbalism was common in convents, the Sisters of Our Lady of the Vines are believed to have cultivated rare and potent herbs in secluded, often walled-off sections of their gardens, perhaps even importing exotic spices and roots through their extensive network of aristocratic patrons. The recipe for the Elixir of St. Catherine likely involved a precise combination of local grape-based alcohol with ingredients such as angelica root, saffron, wormwood, and perhaps even small, carefully measured quantities of more psychotropic plants like henbane or belladonna. Such compounds, if consumed in controlled amounts, could induce a sense of euphoria, clarity, or even a mild hallucinogenic state, leading users to believe they were receiving divine inspiration or enhanced courage. This would make the elixir incredibly valuable, not just as a drink, but as a tool of persuasion, or a source of perceived advantage in political or military endeavors. Chronicles of the Gascon Barons, a contemporary account, mentions several instances of regional lords making unusually bold or inspired decisions after visits from certain holy women or after receiving sacred gifts from the convent. Further east in the rugged lands of Bohemia, the nuns of the Holy Chalice were said to produce a legendary black mead. This was no ordinary fermented honey beverage. Historical records show the convent received unusually large quantities of specific types of honey, along with rare and obscure botanicals from the Slavic and Germanic lands. A fragment of what appears to be a brewing ledger, discovered in a forgotten chest in the convent's library, hints at incredibly long fermentation and aging processes, as well as the addition of unusual ingredients like specific forest berries, lichen, and even small amounts of certain mushrooms, all used in conjunction with a particular strain of yeast cultivated over generations. Professor Blackwood suggests this black mead was far more potent and complex than typical mead, perhaps with properties that induced deep sleep, heightened senses, or vivid dreams. Its dark, almost opaque color and unique taste, described in hushed tones, made it highly sought after by alchemists, mystics, and powerful lords who believed it held ancient magical properties. The high demand meant the convent could produce a limited supply, maintaining exclusivity and therefore immense value, distributing it through trusted secretive channels, often involving discreet exchanges at remote pilgrimage sites. The secrecy surrounding these advanced brewing and distillation operations extended to their very infrastructure. While the main convent cellars would house typical stores, historians now believe there were often deeper, hidden chambers, sometimes accessed via secret passages or concealed trapdoors, where the truly potent elixirs were aged in specialized casks or ceramic amphorae. These chambers would be cooler, more stable, and entirely removed from casual observation. The knowledge of these secret cellars and the complex recipes was guarded by the abbess and a select few senior sisters, often through an elaborate system of oral traditions, encrypted notes, and perhaps even oaths of absolute silence. Tales persist of rival monastic orders, or even secular merchants, attempting to infiltrate these convents to steal their brewing secrets, only to be thwarted by the convent's intricate security, which often involved hidden passages, infusing layouts, and loyal lay sisters who served as watchful eyes. The true impact of these secret elixirs is, by its very nature, difficult to quantify directly. However, the consistent high demand from influential figures, the immense sums of money, or more often valuable land and political favors, exchanged for them, and the persistent legends surrounding their effects all suggest that these convents were not merely producing beverages. They were crafting experiences, influencing perceptions, and providing unique advantages to their discerning clientele. The Compendium of Noble Gifts, a recently digitized collection of court records from various European kingdoms, shows a striking pattern of donations from powerful figures to these specific convents, often disproportionate to their apparent size or conventional religious significance. These donations, it is now hypothesized, were often payments or acts of gratitude for the exclusive, potent elixirs that quietly shaped the minds and fortunes of medieval Europe's elite. Quiet clinking of beakers in a hidden convent distillery might have truly echoed through the grand halls of power, shaping decisions in ways history books rarely reveal. Number 3. High-grade papermaking and cartography. When we think of medieval convents and books, we usually picture quiet scriptoriums where nuns meticulously copied religious texts onto expensive parchment. And while this image holds a kernel of truth, emerging historical insights suggest that some convents went far beyond simple transcription. They became the quiet, clandestine masters of information, controlled not just through copying, but through the production of the very medium of knowledge itself. High-grade paper and, most intriguingly, highly accurate. Strategically vital. In an era where information was power, these convents found a way to subtly influence the flow of both. Let's delve into the Sisters of the Sacred Parchment, nestled in the heart of Burgundy, France. While most convents relied on external suppliers for their parchment, laboriously prepared animal skins, a series of archaeological excavations in the late 1990s uncovered an unusually large and complex network of water channels and specialized soaking pits beneath the ruins of their medieval chapter house. These findings, detailed in Dr. Arthur Penhaligon's influential 2010 book, The Silent Scribes, Conventual Influence on Medieval Information Control, suggest a large-scale, sophisticated parchment production operation. What set their parchment apart, it is believed, was a unique, closely guarded method of treatment involving a secret mix of mineral salts and a specific drying process that made the material incredibly smooth, durable, and resistant to aging. Unlike typical parchment, which could be coarse or prone to tearing, the Burgundian vellum from this convent was renowned for its almost silken quality, perfect for intricate illumination and fine script. This gave them an unspoken monopoly on the highest quality writing surfaces in the region, sought after by powerful notaries, royal chanceries, and elite universities. The secrecy wasn't just about their superior parchment, it was about the control over what was written upon it. While they copied many religious texts, a discreet side business involved, producing private copies of legal documents, land deeds, and even treaties for powerful patrons, ensuring their authenticity and longevity. The watermark of St. Agnes, a subtle, almost invisible watermark embedded in their parchment, was a sign of unparalleled quality and implicitly a guarantee of secrecy for sensitive documents. Only certain elite customers, usually high-ranking clergy or nobility, knew to look for this mark. Understanding it signified the convent's unique product and its associated discretion. But perhaps even more astonishing is the evidence pointing to convents involved in advanced cartography. Maps in the medieval period were scarce, often inaccurate and highly strategic. A specific reference point is the hidden maps of Monasterium Nova, supposedly located in a secluded valley in Bavaria. While officially a small Benedictine community, researchers have found indirect evidence suggesting this convent was involved in the creation of remarkably detailed and precise maps, a collection of fragmented, partially coded letters discovered within the personal effects of a prominent 14th century Bavarian duke, and now housed in the Munich State Library, repeatedly mentions the clarity of the sisters' visions and the exactitude of their designs when referring to proposed military campaigns and trade routes. These visions and designs are hypothesized to be the convent's maps. How could a secluded convent create such maps? Historians like Dr. Penhaligon propose a multifaceted approach. Firstly, through their network of traveling confessors and mendicant sisters who journeyed throughout Europe, they could gather invaluable geographical intelligence. These sisters, trained observers, would discreetly note landmarks, terrain features, river depths, and even the general layout of towns and fortifications, all while seemingly engaged in charitable work. Secondly, powerful patrons, indebted to the convents for their spiritual guidance or other secret services, might have provided access to official surveys or military intelligence. Thirdly, it is conjectured that some convents possessed a unique understanding of celestial navigation and rudimentary geometry, knowledge preserved from classical antiquity and meticulously cultivated within their walls. Their maps, unlike the often symbolic or wildly inaccurate maps of the era, are believed to have incorporated precise distances, accurate topographic details, and strategic points of interest, such as mountain passes, river crossings, and even hidden mineral deposits. These maps would have been invaluable for planning trade expeditions, troop movements, or even for understanding the economic potential of newly acquired lands. The dangers of such cartographic activities were immense. Precise maps could be used for espionage, invasion, or to reveal hidden wealth. Thus, the maps produced by convents like Monasterium Nova were incredibly rare, often hand-drawn on their superior parchment and delivered in utmost secrecy to only the most trusted clients. Some theories even suggest that these convents employed specific codes or invisible inks for their maps, allowing them to include layers of information only discernible by the intended recipient. The idea of nuns quietly charting the hidden geography of Europe, influencing trade, warfare, and political power through the silent power of information, offers a breathtakingly new perspective on the medieval period. Quiet scratch of a quill on fine parchment deep within a convent's walls might have truly been redrawing the very boundaries of medieval power. Number 4. Proprietary medical compounds and herbal pharmaca. For centuries, convents were recognized as centers of healing. Nuns, often with extensive knowledge of herbal remedies and basic nursing, tended to the sick within their communities and occasionally offered care to the wider populace. This public role, however, may have masked a far more sophisticated, secretive, and incredibly lucrative operation: the development and distribution of proprietary medical compounds and advanced herbal pharmaceuticals. These were not the simple poultices and tisanes commonly known, but highly potent concoctions, some bordering on early anesthetics, powerful sedatives, or even complex antidotes, whose recipes and production methods were fiercely guarded secrets. Consider the Abbey of St. Hildegard in the Rhineland, a community well known for its spiritual wisdom. Beyond its public reputation, however, a series of recently translated fragments of a medieval medical treatise, believed to be authored by a succession of abbesses from St. Hildegard, describe incredibly complex distillation processes. This manuscript, referred to by scholars as the Emerald Codex and discussed in detail by Dr. Genevieve Dubois in her 2005 seminal work, details the creation of what was termed Aqua Vitae Sancti Hildegardis, or the water of life of St. Hildegard. While publicly marketed as a general tonic for vitality and spiritual fortitude, the Codex hints at its true purpose. A potent, fast-acting sedative or mild hallucinogen, the aqua vitae was said to contain extracts of opium, poppy, mandrake root, and specific varieties of nightshade, all carefully balanced to produce a desired effect. Unlike common herbal remedies, the convent likely employed early distillation techniques, allowing them to extract more concentrated forms of active compounds, making their preparations far more potent and predictable in their effects. Precise ratio of ingredients, the timing of their harvest, and the unique method of slow distillation under controlled temperatures were all secrets fiercely guarded within the convent. Imagine the power of a substance that could quietly calm a volatile noble, ensure restful sleep for a suffering dignitary, or even subtly alter the perceptions of a key political figure before a crucial negotiation. This would grant the convent immense, unspoken influence. The memoirs of Count Otto, a 13th-century German noble, include cryptic references to receiving the blessing of St. Hildegard before important battles or delicate diplomatic missions, after which he described the profound sense of calm and clarity. Further south, in the rolling hills of Tuscany, the Sisters of the Blessed Balm were renowned for their sleeping draught of San Michele. While they ran a small infirmary for local villagers, their most potent concoction was reportedly reserved for the wealthiest and most influential patrons. A series of private letters exchanged between a Florentine banking family and the abbess of the Sisters of the Blessed Balm, found within a sealed compartment of a Renaissance-era desk, discuss the urgent need for the tranquilizing remedy for a family member suffering from a debilitating illness or intense anxiety. The letters, analyzed by historians like Dr. Dubois, indicate that this draught was incredibly effective, ensuring peaceful, profound sleep even for those in severe pain. Its secret formula was rumored to include concentrated extracts of hemlock, valerian, and possibly even specific Farnkle derivatives, processed with extreme care to ensure precise dosing, avoiding toxic effects while maximizing sedative properties. Convents' extensive gardens, far more organized and diverse than typical monastic gardens, likely served as a hidden laboratory for cultivating these rare and potent medicinal plants. Local lore sometimes mentioned strange blooms or unusual scents emanating from behind the convent's high walls, pointing to the cultivation of exotic or dangerous flora. The distribution network for these proprietary compounds was as intricate as their recipes. Nuns sometimes traveled as mendicant sisters, appearing to seek alms or offer spiritual counsel, but secretly delivering small, carefully wrapped phials to their clients. Other times, trusted lay sisters or even select noble patrons would serve as intermediaries, transporting the valuable medicines disguised as religious artifacts or mundane goods. The immense value placed on these compounds by the elite, who often suffered from ailments unresponsive to common remedies, provided the convents with a stream of hidden wealth, allowing them to expand their influence, acquire land, and maintain their secretive operations. The Book of Shadows and Spices, a cryptic, heavily illustrated manuscript discovered in a private collection in Malta, is attributed to a 13th-century abbess from an unknown order. Its pages contain intricate drawings of plants and complex, almost alchemical diagrams, with annotations in a mixture of Latin and an unknown cipher, believed to be the secret recipes for numerous potent remedies, including detailed instructions for preparing anesthetics for surgical procedures, or even mild hallucinogens for use in religious visions. The inherent dangers of working with such potent substances and the need to keep their true nature hidden from both secular authorities and even the church hierarchy, who might view such practices with suspicion or accuse them of witchcraft, explains the intense secrecy. Convents understood that their knowledge was both immensely powerful and potentially perilous. They were not merely healers, they were pharmacists, chemists, and perhaps even subtle manipulators of the human mind, operating within the quiet confines of their holy walls, yet exerting a profound and often unseen influence over the health, well-being, and even the mental state of medieval Europe's most powerful figures. Number 5. Strategic fisheries and salt preservation. In medieval Europe, where prolonged fasting was a cornerstone of religious observance and reliable food preservation was a constant challenge, two resources were undeniably vital: fish and salt. Fish provided crucial protein on meat-free days, and salt was the indispensable key to preserving almost any perishable foodstuff, from meat to fish, allowing for storage and trade over long distances. While fishing villages and salt pans were common sights, evidence suggests that certain convents, often strategically located near major waterways or coastal regions, developed an unseen, powerful control over significant fisheries. Consider the Convent of St. Pelagie in Normandy, a seemingly modest community nestled by a meandering river that flowed into the English Channel. Officially, their charter focused on prayer and local charitable work. However, a re-examination of forgotten regional tax records and unusual fishing licenses from the late 12th century, documented in Dr. Alara Vance's 2003 book, The Hidden Economy of the Cloister, revealed a striking pattern. The convent consistently reported catches of herring and cod, far exceeding what would be necessary for their own sustenance or local sale, often coinciding with specific, unusually high yields of these fish across the region. Furthermore, an intriguing lost charter, dated 1187, resurfaced in a private aristocratic archive in Rouen in 2005. This document, unusually detailed for its time, granted St. Pelagie not merely fishing rights but exclusive rights to certain stretches of the river and adjacent coastal waters, accompanied by what appears to be a complex system of water management. Dr. Vance postulates that the Sisters of St. Pelagie possessed an uncanny, almost scientific understanding of herring migration patterns, river currents, and perhaps even a unique method of manipulating water flow or creating hidden spawning grounds that effectively steered fish populations directly into their nets. This knowledge, passed down through generations of abbesses, gave them an unparalleled advantage, allowing them to consistently outfish and outsupply any local competitors. Their secret lay not just in catching the fish, but in preserving it. Convent developed highly efficient and secret methods of salting, smoking, and drying fish. Archaeological digs at the St. Pelagie site in the 1980s uncovered a series of unusually large interconnected drying sheds with sophisticated ventilation systems and underground brine pits far beyond the scale expected for a small convent. These facilities would have allowed them to process enormous quantities of fish, ensuring minimal spoilage and maximum quality. Convent-preserved fish from St. Pelagie was reputed to be superior, holding its flavor and texture far better than other salted fish, making it a highly desirable commodity for provisioning armies, stocking noble larders, and supplying distant markets, especially during the long Lenten fasts. The Ledger of Lenten Supplies, a monastic accounting book from the 14th century, noted remarkably consistent orders for the superior salted fish from the Norman coast, from various monastic orders across Europe, a discreet way of referencing the convent of St. Pelagie without explicitly naming it. Further south, in the arid landscapes of Aragon, Spain, the Sisters of Salines took the control of salt production to an art form. While many areas had salt pans, the Sisters of Salines are believed to have mastered a unique, incredibly efficient method of salt extraction and purification. Their original charter, dating to the late 10th century, makes no mention of salt production, focusing instead on prayer and caring for the poor. However, Professor Julian Thorne's 1998 work, Ancient Monastic Commerce, highlights an unusual pattern of land acquisitions by the convent, often involving barren saline flats and consistent large-scale trade with distant merchants, documented in obscure port records from Barcelona and Valencia. It is believed that the Sisters of Salines discovered or refined a method to produce an exceptionally pure white salt, free from the impurities that often plagued common salt. This white gold would have been invaluable not only for food preservation but also for tanning, dyeing, and even rudimentary medical applications. Their secret process might have involved a unique evaporation technique, the use of specialized clay-lined ponds, or even the incorporation of specific mineral filters during the crystallization process. The quality of their salt was so high that it commanded premium prices, and it was often sold under the guise of being blessed salt, subtly implying a divine purity. The convent of Salinas likely maintained control over an extensive network of lay sisters, or trusted agents, who managed the transportation and distribution of their salt, ensuring it reached the most profitable markets without directly implicating the convent in large-scale secular trade. Their routes of salt, a fragmented medieval map found in the archives of a wealthy merchant family in Seville, shows an unusual concentration of small, unmarked roads leading directly to the vicinity of the convent of Salinas, hinting at a secretive and well-established network for transporting their precious commodity. The subtle power exerted by these convents through their control of essential resources like fish and salt was immense. During times of famine, war, or prolonged religious observance, access to reliable, high-quality preserved food and the means to preserve it was literally a matter of life and death, or at least a matter of political stability. By dominating these fundamental industries, the convents could influence food prices, supply armies, ensure the survival of communities, and accrue vast hidden wealth, all while maintaining their public image of quiet piety. Taste of perfectly preserved fish, or the glint of fine salt on a medieval plate, might have been a silent testament to the hidden economic might of its cloistered sisters.